So who are the Liberal Democrats and why are they keen to have Campbell Newman join them? John Humphreys is the president of the Lib Dems. I think he was some time back, John, and then you recently came back as president. Is that right?
Yes, Steve. G'day. Good to be here. Yeah, I was actually the founder of the party 20 years ago, back when I was a young man, and then stepped away for a while, and now I've come back as the national president again.
So what are the core fundamental values or policy priorities of the Liberal Democrats in Australia, John Humphreys?
In terms of values, the party is a classical liberal party, which means that the main underlying value is that we just have skepticism of government, skepticism of politicians and bureaucrats, and the belief that adults should be, on the whole, most of the time, just left alone to be able to live their life in their communities, with their families, with a minimal amount of government interference that is possible in a civilized society. So that's the core value of this: small government, personal liberty. And for policies, well, the most obvious one that we've got at the moment is it probably takes a party that's focus is freedom to be able to push back a bit on the current trend we have, where all of the major parties seem to be, in my opinion, somewhat sleepwalking into a more authoritarian set of policies, allowing the naive pursuit of zero death to justify steadily stripping away our liberties one at a time.
So how different are you from the Liberal National Party, which would also, I think, describe themselves a party of freedom and of liberty, the very party that Campbell Newman has just left?
Yes, well, I agree they sometimes use those words. Sometimes I wonder if there's a bit of cognitive dissonance when they use those words. The Liberal Party has some very nice statements. I would argue that they really haven't lived up to those statements most of the time. And there are some notable exceptions, I want to say. I don't want to seem like I'm negative on everyone. There are some good people in both major parties out there who are trying to do the right thing. But I don't think it's accurate to say that the Liberal Party is really motivated by an interest in human freedom. Unfortunately, I would say they're probably motivated by the goal of trying to get 50% plus one votes every 3 years, which isn't even intended as a criticism. That's kind of what major parties do. And so that means they can't...
Well, they would say you can't change anything unless you win power.
Well, I would say you can't change anything unless you actually change people's opinion, change people's minds. Major parties, I don't think, lead. I think they follow. They follow the 50% plus one. So if you want to change the world, you've got to change what the 50% plus one think. You've got to speak to people. Tell them something, sometimes things that they don't want to hear. That's what I think real leadership is about, sometimes saying unpopular truths that might not be popular yet, but if you say them well enough, you can help make them popular. And then the major parties, through self-interest, will just have to start changing their policies because they'll want to catch up. So this is what I think the game is about for minor parties, for the Liberal Democrats, is to make, hopefully, convincing arguments for more individual freedom and smaller government. And if we're successful in convincing enough people, then the major parties will hopefully start stealing our policies. And I'll be okay with that. I'm happy for them to steal our policies.
I'll come back to the issue of unpopular truths in just a moment. But where would the Liberal Democrats sit on the political spectrum? Political parties and politicians often hate being sort of characterised or pigeonholed by people like me, like by broadcasters. So let me give you this opportunity. Where would you... My thinking is you slid slightly to the right of someone like the LNP, but how do you see that?
I don't know if it would be to the right of LNP. It's very much issue by issue. I'll give you the cliche libertarian answer, because our party has got a libertarian influence and a bit of a libertarian background. And the way we often describe politics is the old scale of left and right is getting outdated. The new scale is between authoritarians and libertarians. The degree to which you trust politicians and bureaucrats to run our life and tell us what to do, or the degree to which you trust adults to be able to run their own life and even do things that you might disagree with, but it's their life, so they're allowed to. And that those issues, the libertarian versus authoritarian, could look left-wing or right-wing, kind of depending on which issue you're talking about. So it's a little bit hard to pigeonhole a libertarian for that reason, although I understand most people, I think, would end up calling us something like centre-right. But I prefer to simply say pro-liberty or pro-freedom.
John Humphreys is my guest. He's the founder of the Liberal Democrat Party in Australia, started 20 years ago. This is ABC Radio Brisbane. Steve Austin's my name. It's 5 minutes to 6. Did you approach Campbell Newman to be a Senate candidate for the Lib Dems, or did he approach you?
I reached out to Campbell about this idea. I had years ago invited Campbell to speak at a conference I used to run annually back when back when we were a free country. And so I knew him, or I knew of him, but I reached out again a couple of weeks ago and sort of proposed this idea, and the conversation started there, and we've been chatting semi-regularly since then.
Do you think, so you mentioned before that parties need to speak unpopular truths and speak it well so that they eventually become, the mainstream is how I'm interpreting it. Do you think Campbell Newman is the person for you to speak unpopular truths? Does he have that communication ability as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think he does, but I've got to say that the communication ability is only half the story. If someone was a very eloquent speaker, but they were saying things that I thought was absolutely wrong, that's not going to work for me. So the real appeal of Campbell Newman for me is that I think he is a good advocate for what he believes. But what I like is that what he believes is what we believe, which is that individual freedom is too precious to give away so easily, and that we, generally speaking, can't trust politicians and bureaucrats, and we need a smaller government so that people can make more of their own decisions. So that it's the fact that our values align is why I think he's going to be such a good representative for the party and a good senator for Queensland.
I've been told you're also hunting, other high-profile candidates for your party to stand in the Senate in other states of Australia. Have you found them yet?
Well, we have no other announcements for this phone call, Steve, but if we have some more announcements, I'm happy to call you back. We have a lot of very interesting conversations going on with a bunch of potential candidates that I think your listeners would find quite, again, I'll say interesting.
Okay.
But we haven't finalised those yet, so I don't want to jinx myself or give anything away without having finished those conversations.
You did have
watch this space.
You did have David Leyonhjelm, a New South Wales senator for your party, in the Senate. Do you regard his time as a senator as a success?
On the whole, I think he did a pretty good job. It's very difficult for one person on their own in the Senate to make much difference. This is why we're hoping that when Campbell goes to the Senate, he's able to bring a team. Our ultimate goal this time around is if we can get 10% of the vote across the country, we could potentially bring in 6 senators and take balance of power away from the Greens. So that's an enticing possibility that's on the table now. I think David did a pretty good job for what he could do as one man. And I think Campbell with a team will be able to do even more. He'll do a lot better than that as well.
My guest is John Humphreys from the Liberal Democrats. The federal opposition attacked you today. Senator Murray Watt, a Queensland Labor Party senator. I was surprised that they bothered. Does this indicate that they see you as a threat, or am I misreading it?
Well, I haven't actually, I hadn't heard that we'd been attacked by Labor, but I'm very happy to hear it. It probably does mean that they're worried, as they should be worried. Labor's probably worried about missing out on their second senator for Queensland next time around, and maybe other senators across the country. So I think it is fair to say the Liberal Democrats will be drawing voters away from both major parties and other minor parties as well. I think it's sometimes incorrectly pitched as we'll just be stealing voters from the Liberals. But I think there's a lot of Labor supporters that are disillusioned with the way the Labor Party's trending towards sort of inner city woke issues and away from actually worrying about the battlers. Because a lot of the battlers are the people that are struggling under some of the policies that have been running around this country for the last 18 months. And they need someone to stand up for them and actually push back on some of the freedoms that they're losing. John Humphreys, thanks for your time. Thank you very much. John Humphreys is the president of the Liberal Democratic Party in Australia. A couple of text messages have come in about Campbell Newman, by the way. Campbell Newman seems to be quite a polarising figure these days. You either love him or hate him, if I'm being fair on the text message. Let me give you one. Shane says, Steve, I'm in Queensland. My wife and kids are in New South Wales. These idiots want them to quarantine in a paid hotel with COVID possible cases when they can quarantine at home with good clean air. Campbell Newman, bring him on, says Shane. I'll read you some negative messages after the 6 o'clock news.
G'day, I'm Craig Zonka.
And I'm Loretta Ryan.
It's great to get out of the house.
But don't forget us. Take us with you by downloading the ABC Listen app.
Then you'll never have to skip breakfast.
Weekday mornings from 5
on ABC Radio.